Alright guys, I'm going to be reacting to the Buzzfeed Unsolved episode of the Black Dahlia. Fun fact, I made the Black Dahlia in Sims. Let's watch the video. 3, 2, 1, play.
So today we're driving to certain spots in Los Angeles as part of an ongoing series where I tell Mr. Brent here true crime stories, Buzzfeed Unsolved. Today's mystery is probably one of the most famous unsolved murder cases I've ever read. And enough with the pleasantries, let's get into it. On January 15, 1947, the remains of 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, or as she is commonly known, the Black Dahlia, were discovered by Betty Bersinger on a morning stroll on the block of 3800 Norton Avenue in Los Angeles.
What did it
The
look
body
like
was
back
cut in
then?
half and so pale and thoroughly drained of blood that Betty Bersinger actually mistook it for a mannequin at first.
I guess I was seeing the impression of the body.
Precision, leaving no trauma to internal organs or bones, and her face had been cut from her mouth towards her ears to form a haunting, ever-present smile. There was no blood on the ground, making it clear that the body was moved there after she was murdered. 9 days after Short's discovery, an envelope was received by the Examiner, addressed in horrific fashion using cutout letters clipped from movie ads. It read, Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers. Here is Dahlia's belongings. Letter to follow. As promised, the envelope contained Short's social security card, birth certificate, snapshots, and an old address book with some pages missing. Gasoline was rubbed on the contents to remove the fingerprints.
Life hack right there.
What if it caught up in flames in transit? Do you
Yeah.
think he was like sitting at his home nervous, thinking, oh, I really hope they got my letter? Many notes were sent to the police and press that followed. One handwritten letter read, turning in Wednesday, January 29, had my fun with police. Black Dahlia, Avenger.
Or it could have just been some random person who had sent these letters, and it's not the killer.
Why would you pretend to be a killer?
Why would a killer kill someone in the first place?
Before arriving in LA,
That's a good
Elizabeth
question.
spent time in San Diego with a man named Robert Manley, who drove her to LA and helped her check into the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Many reports state that this is the last place that Short was seen alive. And like our old friend the Cecil Hotel, the Biltmore is reportedly haunted. Hotel
I
guests
wouldn't
claim to
blame
have seen
it.
Elizabeth walking on the first floor in a black dress, only to disappear into a wall. She's also seen on the 10th and 11th floors.
No, absolutely not.
If I had the option to haunt a place until someone found out who murdered me, I think I would do that.
So if I step on a fly, does a fly's ghost stay around?
Well, I mean, this is assuming that a fly is capable of complex thought.
All right, what about a dog or a dolphin?
I don't think that's impossible that there could be a ghost dolphin or dog.
I think somewhere along the line,
Now I want ghost
evolutionarily,
dolphins.
there was the first animal that was able to turn into a ghost, and that somehow benefited them.
Alright. Others state that after Manley left, the guy who dropped her off, Short headed to the nearby Crown Grill bar, which stands today as Club Galaxy. That place is actually the true last sighting of the Dahlia, people claim.
It's a strip club? Was she a stripper?
No, it's not. It's always a strip club. Although this case has been officially listed as unsolved for nearly 70 years, there's no shortage of interesting suspects. But I'm only going to go over what are, in my opinion, the most interesting ones. The first suspect was Robert Manley, the guy who dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel.
Ah, the Uber driver.
Uber driver. But not only did he return to San Diego almost a week before her body was discovered, but he also passed a polygraph test. But
I don't think it's
it is worth
suspect
noting
number
that in
1.
1954 he was committed to a mental hospital due to hearing voices. However, when administered sodium pentothal, which apparently is a truth serum,
The
he was
fuck?
proven. I'm not fucking with that. It's literally what it is. It's
So they got fucking Snape on the line and said, hey, give us your truth serum. This is why cases are unsolved, because they're working with 1947 technology.
Anyways,
He checks out.
he checks out. On to the next one. The second suspect was Army Corporal Joseph Dumays, who claimed to be blackout drunk with Elizabeth in San Francisco a couple days before her discovery. When asked if he thought he killed Elizabeth, he actually said yes, but evidence later showed that he was on his military base the day of her death. The final suspect
Oh,
was
yeah.
George Hodel. But before we begin, let's visit George's home at the time in LA. The house had a secret room where the children were not allowed to go, and nothing screamed innocent like a secret room.
Wait, so did the children
That's
know
like
what
the whole alarms going off.
This is where it gets interesting. So, George's son, Steve Hodel, who was 5 at the time of the Dahlia murder, later became a police investigator for 17 years, and after retiring from the force, became convinced that his father, George Hodel, had actually killed the Black Dahlia. And looking at the facts, Steve Hodel makes a pretty compelling case. So, George Hodel was highly intelligent. He studied surgery in medical school and also ran LA County's venereal disease clinic, which would also suggest that he's capable of the surgical disembowelment and
Is that
mutilation
still a
of the
medical
suspect's body
place?
that was found at the scene of the crime. Also, despite being a busy doctor, George Hodel was also a busy bachelor, having 11 children from 5 different women.
Wait, this guy had 11
Dude.
children with 5 different women.
Additionally, Steve Hodel also found pictures of a woman that appeared to be Elizabeth Short in one of his dad's photo albums. However, when examined by a forensic artist, the artist was 85% certain it wasn't Elizabeth in the pictures. But in 2014, a different expert used facial recognition technology, resulting in a 90 to 95% match. But much like the other
To be
tests,
fair,
the results
I'm
ultimately
pretty
differed.
face
Steve
blind.
also believed his father's handwriting was eerily similar to the handwriting of the Dahlia murderer, but when reviewed by experts, the results were mixed, with opinions ranging from probable to inconclusive. George Hodel
I'm not
was
good at
also
handwriting
accused
either.
by his own daughter of sexually assaulting her,
Oh.
but was found not guilty. Now here's
Well,
where
it's the
things get
1940s.
fishy
What'd you
and suspicious,
expect?
in my opinion. At some point, police officers did suspect George for killing the Black Dahlia and planted listening devices in his home. On tape, George was heard saying, quote, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they couldn't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary anymore because she's dead." End quote.
He sounds like a 1950s mobster.
They can't talk to my
Yeah.
secretary anymore because she's dead. She's dead, copper. Additionally, he also was caught saying, "This is the best payoff I've seen between law enforcement agencies, and I'd like to get a connection made in the DA's office." George's son also tracked down an LAPD case file that contained a female witness who stated George and Elizabeth knew each other. This strikes me as a really good time to tell you that the LAPD was notoriously corrupt around this time, which
No
perhaps
shit.
explains why the case was dropped, even though George was emerging as a clear suspect, and would also explain why all physical evidence from the case has magically disappeared.
Wow.
This can mean a lot of things. Some believe that George paid off the police, while others believe that this is just a classic case of police incompetence, but nobody knows for sure. This isn't over, by the way. In 2012, the ever-vigilant Steve Hodel returned to his childhood home with a police dog that indicated the scent of human remains. Soil samples were taken from the alley behind the former Hodel house that came back positive for human remains as well. And while this doesn't link to the Dahlia murder directly because she wasn't buried, it does indicate that George Hodel was perhaps not the biggest stranger to murder. Even more fascinating, Steve Hodel would like to keep digging on the property, but since it's privately owned, he doesn't have permission to do so. And when trying to get the LAPD to follow up on this new evidence, they refused.
It seems like you're trying to say that the LAPD is still trying to cover this up, which to me is crazy. No.
I don't know. I mean,
You can't just shrug. and
Maybe
go, "I
they're
don't know."
maybe they're just being lazy.
regardless, it seems that the famous case of the Black Dahlia will remain unsolved officially, but perhaps. I don't know where I'm going with this. I think I know who did it. I'm just gonna
It was freaking George Hodel. Based on the results of seasoned investigations, I have two counts of murder against George Hodel. The AK was speaking for himself, not the DA's office. The case remains closed. So yeah, I'm 99% sure it's George Hodel, but we can't get any evidence because the evidence is all down the toilet. We don't know where it is. But I'm pretty damn sure it was George Hodel. See you guys in the next one, and maybe I'll put a link in. I have Elizabeth in the gallery, so if anyone wants her for their own Sims 4 game, I will put a link and I'll send you a link.